Hey everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about what happens to Udemy in a stock market crash. Alright, welcome back. First, this video, make sure that you like, subscribe. More subscribers to get the more content we can make. The number one reason why you subscribe to this amazing YouTube channel is to get into the money-making trends before they go mainstream. Alright, so let's take a look at the Udemy stock here. It was actually up for a bit, and then it went down this morning. And if we go back to the IPO price, you're still that's not 10%. That's 10% the low if you bought it on opening day, but 3% above the $29 that most people bought it at, and you're still, 16% above the bottom if you managed to time this particular dip. And it's very difficult to time the personal dip, so that's the reason why I say personally that if you're going to be invested in something, you just pick a position and kind of forget it. Do your due diligence and whatnot and kind of forget it. But still, even the 5 days, you're up about 8% here. So, today isn't necessarily a good day for everything. You can see that crypto is also down a little bit here. There's been some new cryptos moving up. Polkadot, the meme dog coins are not in the top 10 anymore. So that's kind of funny. And then, these are just some stocks that I watch on Stock Twits here. And you can see, for the most part, that not everything is up here. You can see that, again, the cryptos are down. But, the meme stocks looks like are going back up. But anyway, let's talk about Udemy and let's talk about the stock market here. The thing is that, in the last 12 years, there hasn't really been too many stock market crashes. There was obviously one when COVID hit, and then there was another one in 2018 when the Federal Reserve decided to taper. And I know this because I actually lost some money in Apple during that time in 2018, which is kind of a weird thing. But and if I just held on to it, it would have been much better. But anyway, nevertheless, what would happen to Udemy if there is a recession or a stock market crash? Now, this is something that I've always thought about because one of the things that's been interesting over the last 10 years is that the lack of any kind of correction. It's always just kind of been up, and maybe there's been a bit of a correction, but for the most part, it's just basically been up with stocks, right? So, is the stock market overvalued? Yes. Was it overvalued before COVID? Yes. Was it overvalued 5 years ago? I would say a little bit, yeah. Everything's been a little bit overvalued since like 2012. But nevertheless, what if there is a stock market crash? What if the Federal Reserve decides to taper or raise interest rates or something that just causes the market to crash? How will Udemy do? Well, here's the thing about education. And this is something that you as an investor, if you're an investor in the space, you really need to listen up. The worst thing for an e-learning company is the prelude to the crisis and not the actual crisis itself. So if things are slowing down, but people still have their jobs and they still have their careers, then that's the worst thing for e-learning. And the reason for that is that the number one reason why people go to Udemy is to upgrade their skills, right? You upgrade your skills to get a better job, to get that promotion, and basically to make yourself richer. Like that's what it is. Now, sometimes that richness is either, monetary value, like you get a promotion or you start a business or something. And then sometimes the richness is just intrinsic. I wanted to learn this, so I am more enriched as a person. And both of those two things are good. And by the way, if you're a student, if you can combine the intrinsic and the extrinsic ideas together, that's the best thing you can do. Right? If you find that people are really successful, are really interested in something boring, like cybersecurity or, coding to a certain extent, because, even 10 years ago, no one wanted to do these coding tutorials, and here I am. So one of the things that again is really bad for the e-learning industry is if things are slowing down, people are spending less, but there hasn't been a crash yet. And that's the real problem. And I noticed that in my personal sales in 2018. Now, not everyone's going to say that. If you talk to different e-learning companies, like you'll see that some e-learning companies do better and some instructors do better and whatnot. But for the most part, I noticed that where basically sales were a little bit slower, and then it just picked up all of a sudden. So my sales were actually going really well before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I thought I was going to go out of business. I actually did. I actually thought that my company would go out of business, but it didn't. It was actually our best year ever, and so that was quite interesting. And I didn't think anybody expected that, but nevertheless, if things start to slow down, that's really not good for e-learning, right? The better thing for e-learning is a complete crash. Now, will Udemy stock go up in a crash? Well, no, I probably won't. So if everything's crashing, then the Udemy stock will most likely crash too. The only way that it would go up is that if there's a huge short interest. And sometimes you see this, like the whole market is going down, but you see a few stocks are in the green. And the reason for that is that there's so much short interest that they've covered their shorts to a buy, and that buy order has moved it up. And you see this sometimes with commodities, specifically natural gas, where there's always a lot of huge and big short interest on. But nevertheless, so again, if things are just slower than normal, and people still have their jobs, then that's really not good for Udemy. And I don't expect the stock to do well. It doesn't matter what your subscriptions are. You'll just get less people interested in e-learning. The thing about e-learning and education is that it is a hedge against like a big, some kind of big calamity or stock market crash. Because if people are out of their jobs, they will spend their money on education, right? And I know this because, I graduated in 2008, like right before the recession. and I noticed that because I was a teacher during that time too. And I actually got a really good offer for a teacher job, but I just declined it, which that's a story for a different time. But nevertheless, I noticed that just parents and everyone was spending money on education. And Udemy was kind of born out of that, right? It was born in 2010 when, we're in the depths of the great financial crisis, just starting to get up, just starting to recover from that, right? And then it took 4 years really to recover. I think it was it was a long time before, it was 72 months or something. I'll have to take a look at that chart again. But nevertheless, so that's, once you have a huge crash, people will flock into e-learning. And so if there is a stock market crash and you see the Udemy price go down 25, 50, or even 75%, I would definitely buy. I'd probably put a bigger position than normal. I wouldn't put all my money into anything, let alone Udemy. But, I would put a bigger position than normal if there is that kind of volatility. I just would, right? And I do think that Udemy would be one of the ones to do, right? Specifically because it's one of the only e-learning companies that allows you to upgrade your skills for jobs. That's on the that's on the stock market, right? The other thing is I want to take a look at Duolingo, right? By the way, I was looking at this stock the other day, and you can see here that I've always been, now when it comes to stocks, and e-learning companies, I think Duolingo, I have nothing but respect for Duolingo. It is a very, very good service for what it does. It checks all the right boxes for me, and it does basically everything right. So as you can see, you got 60%, but now from the highs, it's down about 30%. And then, if we go back to the bottom here, it's still up 11%, but when it IPO'd earlier this year, right, we're down about 3%. So we had a spike and then a fall here. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the original investors got out at this point, which is a very serious concern for Udemy as well, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they pump up to here, and then all the people who bought stocks will sell, and then that's that. Again, Duolingo, I think, is very good. It's in terms of the product itself, it's amazing, right? It is really good. Now, whether it's the stock price is worth what it says it is a whole other thing. But in terms of what evaluations, because evaluations are weird, and I don't think they're reflective. But people have been saying that for 10 years. It could be, people could be saying that for 20 years. No one, it's very hard to predict what will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if what we're experiencing goes on for until 2029. I would not be surprised if we continue just the same thing. And then we might have some kind of reset into a different monetary system. And hopefully it's one that's better than now, but we never know, right? So what happens to Udemy in a stock market crash? Well, I've already talked about it. The worst thing for e-learning is a slowdown, right? Where people still have their jobs, they just have less money to spend. That's the worst part. And then I would expect sales to drag a lot, especially subscription sales, because nobody wants to buy a subscription at all. And the only people that do are really into it. And, you know, the thing about subscriptions is that it won't, like that will be the one that's hardest hit, specifically on the consumer side. But when the stock market crashes, and if you get a really big correction in either the stock market or Udemy stock, that's pretty quick. Like within a week, 2 weeks, a month tops, you get like a 25, 50, 75% down. That would be a buy. If Udemy went 50 to 75% down, I would put a bigger position than normal. And if it went down even more, I would dollar cost average it. That's exactly what I would do in that particular situation. Because again, the product is good. It's not perfect, and it could be doing a whole lot better, but it is, at the end of the day, Udemy does a really good job with it. And at some point in time, though, I do think a competitor will come out. Who knows who will do that, but it will one day. And that might not be good for the stock, because it won't be. The hardest thing would just be to get traffic to your site, and you could get people to pay for that, right? Or you could do it for free. And I've talked about that multiple times. All right. So that concludes this video. I want to know your thoughts. What would you do in a stock market crash? Have you noticed that you spend less when things are slowing down? Let me know. Remember, this channel doesn't do Patreon said. We sell digital products down below. If you buy those products down below, it makes this channel possible and it makes my company possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.